Hi, I am random YouTuber 3,000,008 or something like that. Welcome to my video that is called The Top 9 Reasons I'm Leaving Denmark. No, there's not 9 reasons I'm leaving. Actually, there's mainly one, and that's financial. So that title doesn't really work. How about the top 9 things I'll miss the least about Denmark? No, that's not good. 9 problems I have with Denmark? No, that's a bit too antagonistic. 9 ways America is better than Denmark is close, but again, I think it's a little, it comes across as a little negative, a little harsh. So, maybe something like 9 things to consider if you're planning on moving maybe to Denmark, perhaps. That's pretty close. So, I'm an American, and I've been living in Denmark for 6 months. And I'm about to leave. Now, before I get destroyed in the comments section, understand that these won't apply to everyone. In fact, I'm mainly addressing people around my age, 50 and up, with a decent job in the US, good salary, and benefits. But even folks who fall into my situation, there are going to be exceptions. Now, I'm not going to say that the US is amazing and Denmark sucks. Well, I am, but mainly for me. That said, there are some things here I think everyone considering moving to Denmark should know. And sure, there are things that happen to just me and might be anecdotal. If you have had different experiences, please share. But, and I'm being sincere here, I think this is important to say because all I hear online is how the US sucks and Europe is heaven on earth. It's what I call Euro worship. I'm tired of the US being endlessly shit on without any advocates. Now, before I commence, let me say this. I think Copenhagen is a lovely city. The architecture is stunning. The restaurants are great. The resiliency of the populace is something that I envy coming from California, where masking is still a thing. I moved here partly for work, but partly because I fell in love with the city during a trip last year. Okay, with that out of the way, here we go. 9 things about stuff. Number 9, conveniences. Oh, the conveniences. Those little building blocks of daily life that we take for granted, or might at least not consider when exploring a move overseas. And when it comes to conveniences, the Kingdom of Denmark is a little light. Now, this could be a fairly long list, but let me start with just a few of the basics. Air conditioning, elevators, clothes dryers, right? You're going to be drying your clothes on a rack. Now, I don't know if you've ever done this. I know it seems charming. You have to understand, drying on a rack, you can't use proper dryer sheets. You can use a fabric softener in the washer, but it's not the same. And you're left with very stiff, crispy, crunchy clothes. And it's a little bit of a problem. All right, to continue, decongestant, UPS, 24-hour anything, Tums. Also, I'm going to say one word, CVS. In the US, we have this store called CVS. Now, at CVS, you can buy items that it would take 3 stores in Copenhagen to buy. Now, is this always a problem? Well, no, it's not always a problem, but sometimes, right? There's no reserve chute. You know, it's lovely to walk around Frederiksberg, running your errands on a sunny day. But if you're coming home real late from work and it's raining, well, guess what? CVS. Number 8, money. Denmark is really expensive, right? A number of things. First of all, your salary is going to be a little lower. And again, I'm addressing people like myself who had a really good salary in the US. You're going to move here, and depending on your industry, your salary is going to drop. Mine dropped by half. Now, this is how much I loved Copenhagen a year ago. I was willing to take less money. Also, your taxes are going to be higher, much higher. In my case, it was about 15% higher than in the US, 48% tax rate. And then everything is expensive. The move itself was ridiculously expensive. Denmark has some strange law whereby the moving of goods, the moving of home goods is considered a luxury, and therefore a company is not allowed to pay for that, right? So that's going to be coming out of your own pocket if you want to move your furniture and boxes. And it's balls expensive, right? So, in fact, I had to sell almost all my furniture and bring only boxes. I lost thousands and thousands of dollars in antique furniture to come here, right? And even still, it was like $7,000, just the boxes, right? I had to sell my car. Now, I was still paying a loan on my car, right? Now, the reason I didn't bring my car, of course, is it's very, very expensive to move your car. So because I had this loan, I had to pay an equity gap, right? What you sell it for is not what you owe, right? There's a gap there. And that gap was $6,000, okay? So that's another $6,000. There's also some visa fees that you have to pay. Even if you're getting assistance from your company, you're going to have to pay some fees, right? You move here and you're going to discover food is kind of expensive. Another big one is when you move into your own apartment. Like, we actually stayed at a corporate flat for a while, and that was great. Although we did have to pay for the taxes on it. Another Danish law. But when we moved into our actual apartment, we had to pay the equivalent of about $7,500 US to move in. And that's actually low. Often you have to pay like 3 to 4 months rent plus a deposit in order to just move in. So it's expensive here, right? And you're not going to make the money back. In fact, that was kind of a problem for me. And people often bring up debt, right? No, people in Denmark don't have debt. Well, guess what? I actually ended up in Denmark with debt that I didn't have before because the move was so expensive. I had to use credit cards. So, right. Anyway. Number 7, the people. The people suck. All right, well, yes, I'm being hyperbolic. But they're not amazing, right? They're pushy, they're kind of rude. Compared to Americans, they are super rude. They're not going to want to talk to you. They're not going to want to ask you how you're doing. They're going to push you out of the way on the train. The cyclists are the worst. The cyclists are the worst, right? So I don't know if you know this, but Denmark has one of the most robust cycling infrastructures on Earth. I think it might be the leading on Earth, which is great. You know, that's really good. But it's led to some of the biggest pricks on bikes. And here's the thing. They get their own lane, and they will ding you if you're standing in that lane. But when they feel, when they're a little tuckered out and feel like walking their bicycles, then they're going to do that on the sidewalk. And I don't get to ding, all right? So this is kind of frustrating. So I'm just saying, also, it's a very homogenous society, right? So they tend to like Danes over you. You're sort of like a necessary evil for them, right? I was brought here because I had a very special skill that they needed because their economy right now is growing and it relies on people like myself, expats. So it's a very strange society. It's very insular. It's hard to penetrate. And like I said, the people, it's really no different from New York City, Copenhagen. It really isn't when it comes to the trains. People will just push you. They don't say, excuse me, they just push. Sorry. And I hate to be harsh, but people can be dicks here. And when they're called out on it, well, then it's just that Danish are, quote unquote, direct. So yeah, it's that. Number 6, I kind of grouped these together. Weather and then the sun. I could group them together. The weather is not good. In the summer, it's really, really hot. And I mentioned, not just hot, it's humid. And earlier I mentioned as a convenience, air conditioning. And this is a big deal because you're basically in a hot apartment in the morning. You go outside, it's hot, it's humid. You get on a hot train, you come outside of the train station, hot, humid, and then you go into a hot office and work all day in a hot office. You might get a little bit of respite, if you open a window and there's a breeze, right? Then it might be good. But, I don't know how long it lasts. People here told me it varied each year from a month to 2 months. But still, almost unbearable. The winter, as you know, is not just cold, it's damp. Denmark is almost like an island. It's just connected a little bit to Germany in the south, but Copenhagen actually is on an island. And so you get that island, it's like England. It's a very similar climate. Damp, drizzly, cold. Everyone's got the sniffles. Now, the sun is, oh boy. So this summer, actually I shouldn't say the summer. I don't know when it starts because it started before I arrived. But, during the summer and early fall, the days are really long. So the sun's going to come up about 3 or 4 in the morning and then set at about 9 to 10 p.m. at night. And actually, this wasn't too bad. What sucks is winter. And so I think starting in like October, maybe November through February, March, the days are very, very short. The sun is not going to come up until 9 and it's going to set about 3, right? Which has a real effect on you. It really affects your mood, especially if you're like me. I get up early for work. I get up about 7 and I walk to the train in the dark. I come out of the train station downtown in the dark. I sit in my office for a good 2 hours before the sun peeks through the windows in the office, right? So, and that can affect a lot of people negatively. It really has affected me. Okay, number 5. Now this is especially for people who love to shit on the US, people who want to move to Europe because they're Euro worshippers, and they need to just get away from the US and be in a society that is, so much more egalitarian and modern, it cares about its people, right? So this is number 5. Things that sound like they matter, but don't. So in other words, be wary of comparisons to the US, right? So it's time for some geography. The United States of America is fucking huge, right? So try not to think of it as a country, but think of it as a continent with 50 countries in it. Like if you look at Denmark, for example, here's this really cool website where you can compare country size. And if I grab Denmark and I drag it over to the US, it's like the size of Maine. It's like the size of Minnesota. It's really, really tiny. Now, if I drag the US, the entire US, and bring it over, it's larger than Europe. So we need to consider that when we complain about policy in the US, because you've got 50 policies, really. There's some federal policy, but you also have 50 states with varying degrees of success in their social policy. So let's just keep that in mind. So things that you think sound like they matter don't really matter. Okay, so take crime, for example. Yes, the crime rate overall in the US is really high, but like I just said, America is enormous. So you can move to areas in the US with little to no crime. It's the major cities you should steer clear of if crime is an issue for you. Now, state-wise, avoid places like Alaska, Washington, D.C., I know it's not a state, Tennessee, Arkansas, and then gravitate towards states like Maine, New Jersey, and Idaho. At the city level, steer clear of Baltimore, St. Louis, Detroit, others, while consider moving to Tampa Bay, San Jose, or El Paso. But again, the US is kind of like Europe, with many countries within. And keep in mind, Europe has France, a country with a ridiculously high crime rate. Okay, so excuse the anecdote here, but in all my many years of life in the US, I've had my car broken into once and had a friend get mugged in Manhattan, which is, trust me, is awful, but it's Manhattan. So that's a pretty good record. Now, crime is surging a little bit at the moment because of some ridiculous policy making and really shitty bail reform laws. And hopefully that will be addressed. But all in all, crime is not a factor. Well, personally, for most Americans. Okay, homelessness is another one that comes up. And again, each state is going to have varying rates of homelessness. Is there work that can be done to address homelessness? Yes! But it's going to be different in each country. And in the US, in each state. And sometimes even in each municipality. The US has a problem in major cities with homelessness because of strange policies that incentivize an open-air drug market. So there's that. But there are plenty of places you can live where homelessness is low. Some states, adjusted for population, have lower homeless rates than Denmark. But if homelessness in general concerns you at a societal level, then take solace in the fact that states and local municipalities are working on the problem. To varying degrees of success, sure. You know, it would be reductive and intellectually dishonest to claim that America is just apathetic to the plight of the homeless. It's just not true. So another thing that comes up a lot when people are comparing the countries is work-life balance. So sure, there's a noticeable difference between the work culture in these two countries, but I personally feel that work-life balance is overrated. Now, I believe work is a part of life and provides pride and a sense of worth. And I see this, right? So yes, you know, the work ethic in the United States may be a bit much, a bit aggressive. But on the flip side, in Denmark...
So I don't want to say that Danes are lazy, but they do have a little less drive. And I think this is probably derived from their collective nature and as opposed to American individualism. And, you know, I actually did see this at the office. I saw this very flat structure, almost like a serfdom in a way. There would be like, you know, the directors at the top and then everybody else. And it was a very egalitarian, a very collective, flat hierarchy in a way. It wasn't stratified the way it is in the US. And so I don't think it's either good or bad. I think it's maybe a preference.
But definitely, if taking long 6-week vacations, heading out the office door at 4 p.m. are important to you, then that's one thing to consider. I just think it's minor in comparison to some of the other things I mentioned on this list, like the conveniences. Plus, here's a random factoid. When Americans are surveyed regarding happiness, the demographic that repeatedly tops the polls is the Amish. Those idiots work sun up to sundown and then build barns on the weekend. Another anecdote. I was once out of work for a year and a half, and it is by far the most miserable period of my life. Now, granted, it's stressful to be out of work, and so that certainly contributed to the stress. But I really believe 6 weeks of mandatory vacation is having a negligible effect on happiness.
Danes are happy because, in a way, they have lower standards. So what I mean is, like, in America, you know, people kind of grow up with these big dreams. It's part of American identity, really, is to have, you know, these lofty goals. And the thing about lofty goals is they're very rarely realized. And so you're going to have a lot of disillusionment or a feeling of failure. And so Americans are going to report probably that they're not happy. The Danes, on the other hand, with their maybe like their lower standards, and, you know, if you think about it, a person that claims, you know, we Danes are happy because we know we're taken care of, right? And by that I mean by the government, by definition has very low standards. And so if you have lower standards, then your standards are easily met. You know, Americans alternatively have very high standards because they know that their decisions catalyze to create a life. You know, so if stars aren't aligning even the slightest, an American is not going to claim to be happy. Also, if you look at the survey, like, it's interesting, it's cultural, right? It's cultural. So if you look at the survey, you know, take, for example, a country like Japan, right? Very free society, very healthy economy. They score pretty low on happiness. And The reason is if you really look into it, if you really look into the data, the reason is because it's considered boastful in Japanese culture to claim happiness. And likewise, in Danish culture, it's considered rude to say you're unhappy, right? And also, it's just so complicated. But I really don't think that something like that something like healthcare leads to happiness. I really don't. I think happiness is more of a day-to-day thing. You know, it's that bagel in the morning. It's a favorite sports team. It's friends and family. It really is. Think about it. Like you're healthcare is not going to be on your mind very much. It really, even for someone like me, my age, who relies on healthcare more, is not going to be thinking about it. It's not going to translate into happiness. It just doesn't work that way. It's the same with government transparency, government corruption. Yes, when it comes to voting, it might be on your mind, but it's not on your mind every day. It's not going to cause you to be happy or unhappy. So I think that's really important.
I mean, just ask expats in Denmark how happy they are. They've consistently scored in the top 2 of least content US expats in the world for about a decade. Oh, and I want to point out that this is, like I said, this is mainly for people my age. If you're in your 20s or 30s, moving to Denmark might be really cool because you're probably not making much money at that age, right? So your salary's not going to go down. You might not have even had a car. So it doesn't bother you that you have to take trains and walk and bike. So at that age, I almost recommend it, right? Number 4, healthcare. Now, this is going to be contentious, right? But no, healthcare is not better in Denmark. It's just that everyone is covered. And I think here comes a sort of an idealist versus a pragmatist problem. If it's important for you, for, whatever reasons, philosophical reasons, let's say, that all of mankind be well, right? Then great. If everybody gets not great quality of health insurance, but they all get it, then you've won the lottery. But if you're a realist like me, you advocate for policies that can alleviate suffering in healthcare. For example, pushing for healthcare reform. Remember, in the US, the government has its paws in the health insurance industry, right? It's one of the reasons why healthcare is so expensive, because the government insists that policies contain certain things. If health insurance companies could make bespoke policies for people, then you'd see a lot more, struggling people being able to afford healthcare. Anyway, so if you have solid health insurance in the US, you've got a good job, good salary, great health insurance benefits, and quality is important to you, then Denmark is not for you. The quality of healthcare in the US is far and away better, especially the older you get. This is why life expectancy in the US is the highest in the world. And yes, I said that because you've been looking at the wrong data. If you control for fatal injuries, which have nothing to do with healthcare, the US is number 1. In Denmark, healthcare, even for the basics, is subpar. It's not preventive, it's not personalized. There's no history taken when you go to your doctor. There's no vitals taken, no discussion, no after-visit summary. It's just, how are you today, right now, in front of me, right? And often you're just going to get sent away with, oh, your body can take care of it, right? Now, if you're young, in your 20s and your 30s, you don't really use healthcare right much. So a universal healthcare system might be good for you, Or if, other things, like the bike culture, museum lifestyle, are more important than superior healthcare, then great. Then Denmark might be something you would like. And again, I'm talking about people like myself who have a robust health insurance policy via an employer. Oh, and take good care of those teeth, because dentistry is not covered by socialized medicine, and it's really expensive. Number 3, the language barrier. And yes, I said that. I mean, it's not exactly what you think I mean. So Obviously, it's a foreign country with a foreign language. Now, Danes, pretty much all Danes, speak fluent English, and so they're happy to speak English with you. The reason I say language barrier is because, as my wife discovered, if you try to learn Danish, they don't give a shit. So they will just ignore your Danish and speak to you in English, which, whatever. I guess it's their prerogative. But another reason I say language is because after a while of living here, you sort of get tired of hearing just Danish all the time. You get tired of always feeling like a tourist. And I guess that could be another thing in the list, is just feeling like you're on a vacation that never ends. It's a nightmare. But hearing that Danish, like all the time, I'm sorry, it's exhausting. I really just want to hear an American voice as I walk into a store say, hey, what's up? So it's that's a problem I had. Number 2, familiarity, right? And this is really important when you're thinking about moving here, because the one thing that's going to be different is everything, right? From opening a bank account to picking up and shipping packages, right? Everything is different. Well, maybe not restaurants and, getting your hair cut. But otherwise, everything's going to be different for you, right? And this creates those unhappy expats that I was talking about, because they struggle to fit in, right? And finally, number 1, Denmark is for Danes. And it really is. Denmark loves its own people. And they're the ones that really benefit from the social benefits, from birth to death. If you just move here in the middle of your life, you're not going to be able to take advantage of most of those things, right? And like I said, it's a very homogenous society, so you're not really welcome. You'll never fit in. Danes aren't going to invite you to their house for Christmas if you happen to be alone. They're not going to do that. I know that sounds strange, because in America, that's exactly what they would do, but they don't. So these are my thoughts, and they're my opinions. If you've lived in Denmark as an expat and have different experiences, awesome. Leave your takes in the comments, but please, 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 let's keep the conversation civil. If I feel like the comment section is becoming hostile towards myself or between commenters, I will disable them. All right, so thanks for watching. I hope this helps in some way if you're considering moving to Denmark, or maybe it's just at least entertaining. All right, this might be my only YouTube video. I'm not planning on making any more. So, I don't know, you can subscribe if you want. That'd be nice if you could click the like, and maybe we can get this video shown, maybe get a wide audience for this. Okay. All right, well, thanks again for watching. I appreciate it. I don't mean to offend anyone. If you have a problem with any of this and you have a civil response, like I said, please leave that comment and I might get back to it. Hopefully I will. But that's it. That's all I have. All right. Cheers. Take care. Bye.